Well, folks, what's happening? My name is Ocean Lee, and welcome to the first video on this channel. For any of you who may have seen me before, I do run a small Sunderland channel, and I will confess my sins, or in my opinion, no sin at all, to being a Sunderland fan. However, more than anything, a football fan, and I do want some place to talk about football as a whole. I think there's plenty going on at all times. I seem to have some sort of opinion on all of it, and to be honest, I just want somewhere to talk about it. So, if you like that kind of thing, feel free to stick around. Today, we're going to be discussing how the promotion teams are doing in their first 6 weeks in the Premier League. Can they survive? What needs to happen? All the good stuff there. So, let's get right into things. Let's start right off with Leeds. So, as I said, I will confess that I am a Sunderland fan. So, that is going to have some position in this. However, I think overall, I do want to see these teams be able to compete and survive. The Premier League needs to be a product that is accessible and fair to in some ways to the promoted teams that are coming up. And I think there's been so much discussion in the last few years of whether this promotion model that we currently have is fit for standard because teams are coming up and seemingly unable to compete with the likes of the financial scale of the Premier League clubs that have existed, the so called 17 as we'll call them. But for many people and pundits, Leeds were the team tipped out of any to be able to stay up this year. Totally understandable, the fantastic performance throughout that championship season there, and rightfully so, were deserving winners. Of course, Burnley matched them for points, but there was a certain assured confidence from Leeds that not only they could do it at the back, but they could offer a lot going forward as well. And there was that sort of fear as an opposition team that with Leeds, it wasn't even just a problem of how you were going to score; it was how many they could score on you as well. So yeah, Leeds coming into this season, I felt confident they would be able to compete as good as any promotion team could. And then, of course, as the summer goes on, I think some of the fans were slightly discontented with some of the work they did in the transfer market. I think they've seen the likes of Dominic Calvert-Lewin come in and seen that it was a bit of a lack of ambition on their part. For me, I think they did all right. I think Leeds was probably a good 7 out of 10 transfer window. And as well, we're looking at the likes of DCL as the season's going on, and he's getting plenty of chances. Against Bournemouth on Saturday, he genuinely could have had three or four, and you'd hope that really as the season progresses, he's going to start taking some of them. But for me, from what I've seen from him, especially in the last few weeks, as he's started to really embed in that team, I've been fairly impressed by him, and I think he suits that Leeds team as well. I've seen a lot of Leeds fans talking online about the review of their own review of their season so far, and for me, I'm probably seeing more negative reviews on their behalf than I am positive. And from an outsider looking in, I don't know. I think they're a little unhappier than they probably should be. I think there's obviously the whole elephant in the room to discuss with how tough or non-tough these fixture lists have been for each team. If you were, well, as Opta measured it, Burnley had the hardest fixture list, then Sunderland, then Leeds, and then Sunderland. But I'll get onto my feelings about that when we come to Burnley. So far, though, Leeds have played some big games and they've still managed to come away with two clean sheets. I think being against Newcastle and getting the clean sheet and Everton and getting the clean sheet, really good performances on their behalf. And then again, they went to Wolves and managed to score three goals after everyone really spending the first couple of weeks worrying if Leeds could create enough chances. Between the Wolves game and the Bournemouth game, they've now managed to score five goals. And in that Bournemouth game, they could have scored a hell of a lot more. So if Leeds are able to start converting some of these chances into actual goals, then I think we'll have nothing to really worry about on that aspect. I think for me, when I look at Leeds and how they recruited over the summer, I think they did really well to build a real physical presence amongst their team. And I think it's going to a team that's going to be hard for a lot of teams to break down. That's the same for a lot of these promoted clubs. I think Leeds, Sunderland, and Burnley have done a really good job making sure that before anything they're defensively solid. We've seen pundits lambast teams that have came up from the championship for trying to play out from the back when they don't have the quality to do so. I don't think that's necessarily a problem for any of these teams that have came up. I think Farker and Parker, the two Arkers, have learned a lesson from their previous experience in the champion. I think both of those have learned from their previous experience in the Premier League. And in terms of Regis Lebris, I think just in general, clever tactical guy who just understands the challenges that the Premier League comes with and just not willing to take too much of a chance in terms of giving too many chances away to the opposition. I think all three sides have looked defensively competent so far, and there's discussions around play styles and how each is choosing to go about defending. But overall, defensively, I think they've done really well so far. And you look at the likes of the results against Fulham, where Goodmanson scores that on goal. that isn't going to happen every game. That is such a fluke of a result, and it must feel like a kick in the teeth to Leeds fans to get so far into that game against a good Fulham side. Marco Silva has a good Fulham side, and then not get to come away with at least a point. It's frustrating, but that is going to happen every game. And then I look at Semenyo's free kick against Bournemouth as well. And again, as a Leeds fan, you probably do feel a little bit disappointed by it because Leeds made plenty of chances, defended pretty well, and something as stupid as just that free kick, which even after watching it a couple times, I'm still not sure how that even happens with a draft excluder and a 5-man wall. But these things aren't going to happen every game. And for me, I think from what I've seen, at least of the fans, I think they've been a little bit tough on how good Leeds have actually performed this season because there'll be plenty of teams that are looking at Leeds, looking at Sunderland, looking at Burnley, worried that they're no longer the pushovers that the previous promoted teams have turned out to be. And it's not that I think the other promoted teams came up and said, yep, go for it, just batter us every week. It's not like that at all. I think they tried, but I think really Leeds have done a good job making sure that they are tough, they are compact, and they're able to defend fairly well as well. And then look, when talking about home atmospheres, doesn't come many as good as Ellen Road. And I think between Ellen Road, the Stadium of Light, and even Turf Moor, I think all three of those teams can look towards their home fixtures and look to build a real fortress. I think Ellen Road and the Stadium of Light in particular, both really hard games historically and now for teams to go to. And they both have pretty good records when it comes to their home fixtures, exact same as Burnley. And let's get on to Burnley and discuss as well how they're doing in this Premier League season so far. So let's get it out of the way to start with. Burnley, of course, have had the toughest of the league fixtures so far, playing Spurs in the open day, Man United, Man City, and Liverpool all within their first six fixtures. And of course, the Man United one has become a little bit contentious, but even then, you're playing Forest, who a European qualifying team last season as well. So it's not in doubt that they've had some incredibly hard fixtures. I think the only thing that's griping me about this discussion online at the minute, when it comes to the fixture list, I get it. Of course, in an ideal world, if your team gets some easier fixtures, they can go out there, win those fixtures, and then get going with good momentum. However, I think it just, for me, I think it's a bit of a, don't know, arguable point whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Because realistically, if you're looking, for example, if Burnley are looking at Sunderland's fixtures and saying, yep, well, those are easier fixtures, at the end of the day, Sunderland recruited 14 new players this season. You've got to come out to these so called easier fixtures and make sure you get points whilst your team's still gelling, whilst your team's still coming up to fitness. That's a hard thing to do. And I'm grateful in Sunderland's case that we've been able to do that and been able to take 11 points from 6 games. However, I think if other teams are looking at that and going, oh, well, that's fine because we'll just wait for Everton to play Brentford and get 3 points. Wait for Everton to get West Ham and get 3 points. Everything, every single fixture in football is circumstantial with context, and they have different nuances to every single game. So your team could be at complete fitness at the start of the season when they play these teams, or they could be miles off it and completely waste the opportunity to get 3 points. Simultaneously, you could also be in Burnley's case, where they've still managed to take 4 points from these first 6 games. And from a Sunderland point of view, again, they were more than deserving of the 3 points that they got off of us. So I'd be looking at that from a Burnley point of view and saying, well, hey, we've shown that when we're playing the games that are more our level, we can get some points out of it. As I said, you've no guarantee from a Burnley point of view. If you say that, oh, we're waiting to play West Ham December. I don't know when they play West Ham, but as an example, oh, we've got these easier games come down the line. Not only, as I said, do you need to be fit enough and good enough and ready enough at the start of the season if those easier games are there. You've no idea if you're going to have your best three players injured by the time December comes when you're playing that so-called easy team. You've no idea if, I don't know, you've no idea if you go down to 10 men within the first minute of playing those so-called easier teams. So I think to constantly try and pick at that as an excuse against other fans just doesn't really fly with me. I think focus on your own team, focus on your games. You can look at your team and see the reasons why they can go and win games beyond that one. If they don't win it, then good enough for me. So I look at Sunderland games and say, what are our results? What points are we picking up? And do we look at a team where, regardless of this result, we can still go on to compete? And I think with Burnley, if I was looking at them so far this season, I'd be saying they've done a decent job so far. But I have nothing to take away from the way Burnley have been defending. And I think that a lot of the criticisms of their style of play so far have been really unfair, to be honest, if you ask me, because we've lambasted, as I said, teams that have came up in the past for the Russell Martin style of plays, the Vincent Company styles of plays, where they try to play possession based football with a lower standard of player, and it's not worked for them, and we've ridiculed them and laughed at them for that. But then when someone like Scott Parker shows up to these big games and plays in this super deep, compact way and frustrates the life out of someone like Liverpool, we tell them that's not good enough as well. That makes no sense to me. I think there's fans of big six teams and stuff online who are, I don't know, arrogant in a way to think that they've got a right to tell Burnley how to play football. If that's how Scott Parker and his players see fit for a way to get the win, then go for it, because there's a clear gap in quality of the players that these teams are able to sign and the players that they're able to play for. So why not? If that's the way you can see yourself getting points, go for it. I can understand the worries from Burnley perspectives if they're looking at that going, is this how we're going to play every game? Because I don't see how we win. But for me, I don't think that's how Burnley are going to play every game. I think they've got enough quality going forward, and the chances that they have been given so far in this Premier League season, they've taken your Lyle Fosters, your Jaden Anthony's, been able to convert these chances into goals. And I know against us, Sunderland, for example, they took those chances 3 times. It's just that they got one disallowed. They can be clinical going forward. And again, I'm looking at that game against Man City the weekend, and I'm seeing a Burnley team that competed fairly well for 60 minutes and really hung into it. And yes, it all fell apart in the last 20 minutes, but it's a Man City team. Like, it is a Man City team. And if that's the way Burnley play against Man City for 60 minutes, then they've got far less problems when it comes to playing against other teams. I think they've got enough there to compete. And again, like I said about Daniel Farke, Scott Parker seems to have learned his lesson. It's about being pragmatic. It's about up shop, and it's about leaning into everything that Burnley did well last season. At the end of the day, they were incredible last season defensively. Pretty sure they were record setting defensively. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they were record setting defensively. So why not lean into what you're good enough and then work on those other things from there? Because at the end of the day, you'll still pick up plenty of points, being tough to beat, and that's first things first. So yeah, I think Burnley is one of those ones where you're looking to judge them after 12 games, after 14 games, after a bit of a bigger sample size, because at the end of the day, there's maybe 5 or 6 teams, maybe 7 teams in the Premier League. Nah, I would say 5 or 6 teams in the Premier League that you look at and say, right, okay, probably not going to get points half them. I think everyone else is up for grabs, and you've got to go out, or at least believe they're up for grabs, and you've got to go out and at least believe you can compete with them. Because if you're really limiting your wins and you're limiting your mentality and believing you can only get wins off the people who are competing for relegation with you, then that'll never be enough points. So I think Burnley should, based on their performances so far, believe that they can go out and get points of a lot of teams this season, because I think they were unlucky not to get a point out of United at least, and they were unlucky not to get a point out of Liverpool at least as well. So yeah, Burnley may be on 4 points just now, but I think there's more to come from Burnley this season. And then, of course, the mighty Sunderland. I speak about Sunderland a lot on my channel, so if you're a Sunderland fan, feel free to go and check out the South Stand Clothing YouTube channel. It is a YouTube channel to talk about Sunderland based off the back of our fanwear brand. So go and check that one out. But for Sunderland, I think, of course, it's easy to talk about the good that Sunderland have been doing so far this season. Yes, more winnable fixtures, but I think more importantly, Sunderland have had the quality, discipline, and hard work to be still go out and get those points as well. The win against Brentford, a fantastic win. Definitely a good game to come and get some points against with some adversity. Again, with the penalty shouts and the penalties that happened in that game, Robin Roof's been able to save it. Sunderland been able to go on and get the win. I think going down to 10 men against Aston Villa and still, for the most part, looking the more dangerous team and still getting a one each draw out of that one. And then, of course, going away to a good side in Nottingham Forest, in a hard place to go in the City Ground, and coming away with 3 points as a newly promoted team. I think being on 11 points after 6 games is incredible for Sunderland. And yes, we can always discuss it, easier fixtures, but at the end of the day, they've went out there and they've got those wins. So for me as a Sunderland fan, there's not too much for me to complain about. I think defensively, we look really, really hard to beat. And yeah, there's not many teams that I personally, as a Sunderland fan, dread going to play. I think I'm looking forward to every fixture at the minute, because I believe we can at least be in the games. We can at least compete. We can at least be competent. I think that comes down to the mentality of a lot of those players and just the quality as well that we've managed to bring in recruitment wise. I think getting Alderete and Mukiele and Roos for less than £30 million is incredible work. I think getting someone like Granit Xhaka as your captain, who's leading many metrics, or at least in the top 5 across many metrics, including three massive assists that he's managed to get for Sunderland so far. Yes, we've still got bigger tests to come from this Sunderland team, but if we're winning the so-called easier fixtures and taking points and picking up points in the way that we have so far, then who cares about getting pumped off Arsenal or, do you know what I mean, weight the floor down by Liverpool? It doesn't really matter about those fixtures if you're able to compete and look competent in all the other ones, which so far this season we have done. So I think, yeah, I think the time where all three of the newly promoted teams come up to the Premier League and go down with a whimper, I think they might be over, because at least for now, Burnley, Sunderland, and Leeds United all look like they're ready to put up a fight, and so they should. I think they've done well recruitment wise, and I think as well for me, there's been a lot of teams in the Premier League coasting by the last couple of seasons under the kind of false security of having the three worst teams below them. And I just don't think that's the case now. I think to be in the Premier League, you've got to be smart and competent on all fronts: recruitment, management, and team quality and tactics. You've got to be ready to do it on all fronts. And if you're missing like of any of them, like your West Hams are, like your Wolves are, then I don't think you're safe in the Premier League like you have been in the last couple of years. So I'm looking forward to seeing what all three of the teams can do so far this season. I've been loving watching their games. I think all three have offered something really different, and I think in a couple of weeks, this Burnley versus Leeds game is going to be massive. But anyway, guys, that's all for just now. As I said, I've been Ocean Lee. If you've enjoyed today's video, disagreed with anything, agreed with anything, get involved in the comments down below. Try to just encourage football discussion, I guess, in a way. But more than anything, if you've liked it, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.